Chapter 2, Shatkarma and Pranayama. So I'll do my best what Amanda does, where she can translate the Sanskrit with the English. But if there's something that I say that you don't understand, we can either pause, you can just interrupt me, or just highlight it or underline it or make a note of it. And then when we pause, we can try to go back, and if we don't know the answer together, we can look it up online. So verse 1, thus being established in asana and having control, asana being the physical yoga practice, the poses, and having control of the body, taking a balanced diet, pranayama, breath work, should be practiced according to the instructions of the guru. Only when the body is regulated by asana and moderate diet should a sadhaka begin, sadhaka being this person that this person studying and practicing this yoga practice, begin the next stage of Hatha yoga, i.e. pranayama. So let me just backtrack to yesterday's session or yesterday's closing of chapter 1. This author is a woman, and she's translating another piece of work for us. So they're saying Hatha yoga is the asana, the pranayama, and the shatkarma. And the asana is the physical practice, the pranayama is the breath work, and the shatkarma is like the cleansing practices. And because this chapter is on shatkarma and pranayama, I'm assuming she's going to get more into the knowledge of shatkarma and pranayama. So she'll explain it as we go on. So she's saying only when the body is regulated by asana, the physical practice, and moderate diet, should a sadhaka begin the next stage of Hatha yoga, pranayama. And the last part of chapter 1 spoke all about the diet. If you want to go back to that, I thought it was really interesting. It should not be started until the guru indicates the appropriate pranayama to be practiced. Pranayama is more than simple breathing exercises, and it must be practiced systematically and under proper guidance. The word prana is combined of 2 syllables, pra and na. Prana denotes consistency. It is a force of constant motion. Prana is the vital life force, and pranayama is the process by which the internal pranic store is increased. Pranayama is comprised of the words prana and ayama, which means pranic capacity or length. It is not merely breath control, but a technique through which the quantity of prana in the body is activated to a higher frequency. In yogic terminology, it is said that whatever is manifest in the stutha rupa, or gross form, of the subtle cosmic energy known as prana. In yoga and tantra, there is an eternal truth. The basis of existence depends on 2 forces, Shiva and Shakti, or consciousness and energy. Ultimately, they are not 2 forces but one. Shakti or prana is the creative force of consciousness or Shiva. The purpose of Hatha yoga is to realize Shiva or consciousness by means of Shakti or prana. Pranayama is practiced in order to understand and control the pranic process of the body. Breathing is a direct means of absorbing prana, and the manner in which we breathe sets off pranic vibrations which influence our entire being. Diet control is specified along with the practice of pranayama. Eating is a direct means of pranic absorption, which affects the body, mind, and pranic vibrations. Verse 2, when prana moves, chitta, the mental force, moves. When prana is without movement, chitta is without movement. By this steadiness of prana, the yogi attains steadiness and thus should restrain the vayu, the air. Prana and mind are intricately linked. Fluctuation of one means fluctuation of the other. When either the mind or prana becomes balanced, the other is steadied. Hatha yoga says, control the prana and the mind is automatically controlled. Whereas Raja Yoga says, control the mind and prana becomes controlled. So these are two paths of yoga. Raja is another, so where Hatha Yoga focuses on asana, pranayama, and shat karma, this book and this woman is saying that is one avenue into the Raja Yoga, which is a different path of yoga, which then starts to incorporate the yamas and niyamas that are the moral disciplines of yoga, and we talked more about that in the sutras. The mind is equated with a wild monkey jumping here and there. Because of this inborn tendency, it is very difficult to hold it still. Hatha Yoga says, let the mind be, concentrate on the autonomic body functions and vital energy, and the mind will become quiet itself. When the nervous impulses are steady and rhythmic, the brain functions are regulated and the brain waves become rhythmic. The breathing process is directly connected to the brain and central nervous system, and it is one of the most vital processes in the body system. It also has some connection with the hypothalamus, the brain center, which controls emotional responses. The hypothalamus is responsible for transforming perception into cognitive experience. Erratic breathing sends erratic impulses to this center and thus creates disturbed responses. There are also certain areas of the nasal mucous membrane which are connected to the visceral organs. When impulses come from the nose are arrhythmic, the visceral organs, particularly those connected to the coccygeal plexus, respond in the same manner, arrhythmically. Being disturbed, these organs again send irregular impulses to the brain and cause more disharmony and imbalance. This cycle is continuous. By becoming aware of the nature of the breath and by restraining it, the whole system becomes controlled. When you retain the breath, you are stopping nervous impulses in different parts of the body and harmonizing the brainwave patterns. In pranayama, it is the duration of breath retention which has to be increased. The longer the breath is held, the greater the gap between nervous impulses and their responses in the brain. When retention is held for a prolonged period, mental agitation is curtailed. Actually, sage Patanjali defines pranayama as the gap between inhalation and exhalation. So sage Patanjali is the author of the sutras. Pranayama is usually considered to be the practice of controlled inhalation and exhalation combined with retention. However, technically speaking, it is only retention. Inhalation and exhalation are methods of inducing retention. Retention is the most important part because it allows a longer period. I'm just letting Amanda in. Hi, Amanda. Retention is the most important part because it allows a longer period for assimilation of prana, just as it allows more time for the exchange of gases in the cells. An example, oxygen and carbon dioxide. Sage Patanjali further says that retention of breath after expiration removes the obstacles to yoga. Yoga is the union of the two poles of energy within us. In mundane awareness, these poles are separate from each other. In transcendental awareness, these poles come together, and during retention, the poles come closest together. Breath retention must be developed in order to stop the fluctuations of the brain and mind so that a more expansive type of experience can develop. When you go further into yoga, there comes a time when you must have some control of the mind so you can dive deeper within yourself. When you try to practice mantra or meditation, the fluctuating mental waves create a barrier between you and the object you are trying to focus your awareness on. So how to control the mind? For many, many centuries, people have known that through pranic restraint, you can control the influxes of the mind, and through mental restraint, you can control the influxes of prana. But various spiritual systems have been debating which is the best method to harness the two energies and induce unity. Christ and Lord Buddha said the same thing. Lead a good life and your mind will be controlled. Of course, what they said is true, but people today are exposed to so many disturbing external factors that this approach does not work for them. There are many good, charitable, pure-minded, and compassionate people, but if you ask them to sit quietly, still the mind, and meditate, they can't do it. Yama and niyama do help. Yama and niyama being the moral restraints of yoga and Raja Yoga. That's what this book was saying. But they are difficult for modern day man to uphold. And for this age, these disciplines have not proved to be a very powerful method for developing mind control. However, it has been found that through pranayama, mudras, which are the hands, I want to say hand structures, but this is not the right word, but it's the hand locks, bandhas, which are the body locks, the root, the belly, the throat, and certain postures which regulate the prana, the minds can be brought under control. In many spiritual traditions, including Sufism, Buddhism, and yoga, it was discovered that by concentrating on the breath, one can still the mind, develop one-pointedness, and gain entry into the deeper realms of the mind and consciousness. So I will pause here. We read verse 1 and verse 2, Amanda. Does anyone have questions or anything to say or not clear on something? So basically what this book is saying is that the pranayama, which is what I just call breath work, is really just the pause in between the inhale and the exhale. And I know that we should not we should not be practicing a long retention or pause in between breaths unless you have a teacher guiding you so that you're not gonna just hurt yourself or pass out. So this book is saying it's not the inhale and the exhale and the alternate nose breathing, that's the pranayama. It's saying the pause in between the inhale and the exhale. This is what is helping regulate the prana run through the body. Okay, so I will continue reading. Verse 3. As long as the vayu, air and prana, remains in the body, that is called life. Death is when it leaves the body, therefore retain vayu. Death is not total. The physical body dies or the mind dies, but not the soul. Death is not extinction. It is a process of disintegration. The components of the body, the 5 tattvas, akasha, ether, vayu, air, agni, fire, apis, water, and prithvi, earth. So the 5 tattvas, it's earth, air, fire, water, and earth, which are associated with the 5 prana vayus, disintegrate and go back to their original source. Akasha tattva goes back to akasha, vayu to vayu, agni to aya, apis to apis, prithvi to prithvi. And then the jivatma moves out. The jivatma, the spirit, the ego, ashabadi, or whatever you might like to call it, is something which survives death. The pranas also do not die. They move out of the body and return to their source. If death is to be averted, the process unlinking all 3 components, i.e. prana, mind, and soul, has to be stopped. In this sloka, we are told to retain the vayu. Vayu means air, but it does not refer only to the gross air and its chemical properties. It indicates pranic air. In the pranic body, pingala, which is the right side, from running from the base of your spine up to the 3rd eye, In the pranic body, Pingala channelizes pranic Shakti, but Pranavayu moves throughout the whole body like waves of energy. It can be likened to electromagnetic fields where the energy is in constant motion. There are 5 main Vayu functions known as Apana, Prana, Samana, Udana, and Vayana. They are different processes and manifestations of one Vayu, just as the various limbs of a man comprise the one body. Pranic absorption takes place on a major scale in the thoracic region and is the function of Pranavayu. Elimination takes place largely through the urinary, excretionary, and reproductive organs and is powered by Apana. It is between Apana and Prana in the stomach region is this assimilation, which is the function of Samana. Movement in the throat and facial expressions are due to Udana. So here, let me screen share this picture. And we might be able to find even more clear ones. Circulation is powered by Vyana, which pervades the whole body. I feel like this is different than how I learned it. I don't know if Amanda wants to chime in, or I can find the picture from how I
You mean the body is different?
Well, no, not the body. Just how, I guess the regions, I don't know.
Maybe this is the origin point of the regions, this picture. It's just not showing the end point. Like Apanavayu is showing where it starts, but not where it ends.
Okay. Oops. Let me stop. I think I confused myself now. Okay. All the processes which affect absorption or inward movement of the subtle cosmic force are due to prana. Those which affect elimination or outward movement are due to apana. Assimilation, preservation, and continuation are the work of samana. Ascension and refining are the work of udana. And pervasiveness is the property of vayana. These actions occur within the various realms of existence. The Vayu, however, is specifically concerned with the pranic body or pranamaya kosha. In the Upanishads, prana Vayu is also called in-breath, apana the out-breath, samana the middle breath, udana the up-breath. Prana Vayu is inhalation, apana, exhalation. Samana, the time between the inhalation and exhalation. And udana, the extension of samana. According to the Maitri Upanishad 11.6, samana is a higher form of vayana, and between them is the production of udana. That which brings up or carries down which has been drunk or eaten is udana. From a yogic point of view, the most important Vayu is samana. It is related to Sushumnana Nadi. So Pingala is on the right side and Ida is on the left side, and Sushumna is the central channel that runs up the spine. Pranavayu is related to Ida, Apana to Pingala, and ascension of Kundalini to Udana. Samana Vayu has to be developed. This takes place by suspending apana and prana within the region of samana. Each Vayu is interdependent and interconnected. In the Chandogya Upanishad, it is asked, on what are you, body and senses, and yourself, soul, supported? On prana. On what is prana supported? On apana. On what is apana supported? On vayana. And on what is vayana supported? On samana. On account of these 5 main movements, 5 subsidiary or upana pranas are produced. These are known as korma, which stimulates blinking, prikara, which generates hunger, thirst, sneezing, and coughing, devadatta, which induces sleep and yawning, naga, which causes hiccups and belching, and dana yaya, which lingers immediately after death. From the time of conception until up 4 months, the foetus survives purely on the mother's prana. It is like a tumor in the mother's body. After 4 months, it is said that the prana enters the foetus and begins life, and individual life begins. As the individual pranas begin to move, so the individual body functions become active. However, the child is only independent once it is born and starts breathing. The moment prana completely leaves the body, consciousness departs, because prana and consciousness are the 2 poles of the one source, the self. The Prajnopashad says, this prana is born of the self. Just as there can be a shadow when a man is there, so this prana is fixed on the self. 3:3. At death, when the breath stops and the prana leaves, the magnetic force which held the body together deteriorates along with it. So does the body. Therefore, the breath and prana are likened to a thread in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Verily by air, as by thread, this world, the other world, and all beings are held together. Therefore, it is said, when an individual dies, his limbs have been loosened because they have been held together by air like a thread. When prana leaves the body, there is no force to animate it. As long as prana is retained, the body will not die. Life is generated with inhalation. With exhalation, there is a loss of prana. When the breath is held, the prana does not move out or in, it becomes stabilized. Prana is the basis of life and can be directly controlled through the breath. The yogis who go underground for days together in a place where no air can penetrate completely stop the breath. These yogis concentrate on prana as a point of light in the mid-eyebrow center. When their consciousness is completely absorbed in that light, the breath stops automatically. Prana remains in the body, and there is no breathing process. There is no absorption of prana, no elimination, no function of prana and apana, only of vyana. The body functions are suspended as long as consciousness remains absorbed in the point of light. It is a state of suspended animation. The moment the awareness starts to come back to the physical body, the breath starts and the yogi has to come out. Through the breath, prana and consciousness are essentially linked. They can be separated by a scientific means, which starts with the yogic technique of learning to retain the breath. Prana is the tangible manifestation of the higher self. Hatha yoga uses prana as the key to expand the awareness of consciousness and realize the self. Some systems of yoga aim at self-realization by purifying and concentrating the mind, others by purifying and channeling the emotions, and some by purifying the intellect and developing wisdom. There are so many ways of redirecting the vital life force from the lower and to the higher centers. Hatha yoga achieves it by a means which is most practical for everybody, through the physical body and by working directly on the pranic movements. I will definitely pause there.
I'm glad you're pausing because I feel like I really don't understand this verse at all.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find.
I can explain.
Yeah.
Why don't you bring it back to the chart, Pam?
Hi, Izzy.
So we talked about yesterday how the yogis charted out how energy moved through the body, right? It was to such an extent, the 72,000 nadis, the way the energy flowed through these 72,000 streams, they knew every single one. And some of them flow all in the same direction. So they create almost like a current through the body. So we'll start at the bottom and work to the top. The bottom is apana, which is from the navel down to the feet. It's the downward flow of energy throughout the nervous system. It regulates defecation, menstruation, ejaculation, things like that. Anything that's dysfunctioning there would have to do with the prana or electricity not flowing properly through that current. So the next would be, on my phone, it's so tiny. So next, well, I like to do apana and prana after. So prana would be from the lungs up towards the throat, and it drives our inhalations. It regulates our speech. It has a lot to do with what's coming in through the mouth and what's going out of the mouth. Right? So if you're able to swallow, if you're able to sing, if you're able to speak, right? Somebody who has a stutter would probably have an issue with this, with the flow of energy in the space. It's, if somebody gets a injury in their spinal cord and this cord is severed, anything underneath it is not going to get electricity anymore. It won't work, right? Their legs won't work anymore, or their arms won't work anymore. So this is the mapping out of that. It's pretty cool to understand how it works, because certain yoga postures act upon certain vayus, or these energetic streams, to make your body function better, right? Like the yogis knew how to manipulate these currents because they knew what they were and where they were. So it's part of the reason why you feel so good after yoga class, why you feel so good after acupuncture treatment, why you feel so good after acupressure massage, because it's opening up points to let these energies flow better. So the next would be samana.
Amanda, do you think these ones help me where I actually see the flow?
Sure, yeah, whatever you got.
Okay.
So actually, I guess the next would be Udana. Udana is similar to prana, but we could think of it as what connects the soul to the body. They call it like the superphysical plane. So it's what keeps the consciousness inside the physical material form, because the consciousness is something beyond the material, right? The yogis teach that you can reincarnate. There's a part of you that moves on to the next body when we shed this one. Right? What holds us to the current body, the current manifestation of matter, is Udana. And then Samana would be at the navel. It's sort of responsible for our internal blender of how we digest our food, right? If you have a blender and the electricity isn't running right to it, it might have spurts of moving really, really fast and then not moving at all. And then it's not going to digest the food properly, right? It's not going to chop it up properly. It's going to either over digest it and give you kind of runny stool, or it's going to under digest it and it's going to cause fermentation and gases and all kinds of problems. So in Ayurveda, we address this. In yoga, we address this with the yogic diet and what we eat. When we do twisting postures, it helps to purify this. This is where the colon is. This is where our digestive organs are, right? How the intestines are working properly. And then we have Vyana Vayu, which moves throughout the entire body. Vyana Vayu moves the blood all around. It moves the electricity all around the nervous system. It's responsible for the form of the body, of holding it together. So that obviously has to be functioning well too, right? We need the blood to circulate properly, otherwise we'll have all kinds of issues. Because the blood carries, right, all the food comes in through prana, samana digests it, vyana sends all those nutrients out throughout the body, and then apana sends the waste product down and out of the body. Make sense? So this is how the body is functioning. And once we learn this, if something funky is going on, like say I'm having some kind of issue with my menstruation, it's not regular, I'm not getting it 28 days, I have like 42 days I'm getting it, or some people are bleed for a whole month, right? This is an issue with Apana Vayu. So there are certain remedies. And if you learn under a very educated yoga instructor, they know all these remedies for each thing, where you can do asana, physical practice, meditation, dietary changes, daily rituals, daily schedule changes that can regulate it. Because the whole idea here, especially with Hatha yoga, is that we're trying to achieve a kind of perfect health in the body and mind so that we can turn energy upwards. So this idea of enlightenment is when apana, the downward flow of energy, flips and reverses, and prana, the upward flow of energy, flips and reverses. So the two change, so that instead of leaking all this energy downward, the energy starts moving upward, up the spinal cord, up towards the crown of the head. As it moves up, you'll feel it during meditation practice, a warmth in your spine or a heat throughout the entire body. Some people feel it as a shaking or sort of jumping in the nervous system. So as the energy is moving upward, it purifies every chakra and balances it. And every chakra is just a bunch of nadis, right? The vayus are lots of nadis flowing in a direction. The chakras are nadis flowing in a wheel. And they electrify the different glandular systems that are responsible for how our hormones work. So like the root chakra is your adrenals, right? The sacral chakra is your sexual organs, your testes or ovaries. We have some nice background soundtrack. My kid's singing for you.
It's so cute singing. I can't even take it. I love it. It's so calming.
Yeah. So what's the next? So the idea is, and then we have the solar plexus is your pancreas. The heart is the thymus. The throat is the thyroid, parathyroid. And then we have pineal and pituitary glands. All that, which is responsible for the governance of your emotions and your hormones and the regulation of everything essentially inside your mind body, it all gets purified when you're starting to reach towards enlightenment. And the energy moves all the way up to the crown of the head, and then from the crown of the head expands into everythingness. So while there's an inward experience of inner knowledge, interconnectedness to everything, self-awareness, self-realization, and enlightenment, there's a physicality to it as well that happens. So we're doing all these practices because you have to train the nervous system. You have to train all these vayus to be so strong and so healthy that they can accept the kind of influx of energy that happens throughout the system during enlightenment. I always use the example of when you go to Europe and you stick a hairdryer in the wall. If you don't have something that converts the voltage doesn't match, you're going to blow up the hairdryer and you're going to make the whole block go out, right? No one's going to have electricity anymore. So with our bodies, it's the same deal. You get these people who do energetic practices really intensely at the start. Maybe they're being taught by teachers who aren't educated in this, right? They don't know about the vayus. They don't know that the prana is so turbulent that, people start getting anxiety because they have so much energy with nowhere to go. They start getting very, sort of loopy, like they're up in the clouds. They're not grounded any longer as they practice. But in the lineages, span back thousands of years, they knew all this. So they gave us techniques to make it really safe as we practice these things, and very purifying and very healing. as we practice all these deep energetic work. Okay. Does that make sense? Or you guys have any questions about the values?
I have a question. So as you get more enlightened, you can get more loopy?
No, it's when you, so say I'm doing a lot of pranayama, right? Pranayama is breath work. And say I'm a new student and I haven't done any physical practice, but I'm doing all these advanced breathwork practices and kriyas. Then I'm going to be introducing so much energy into my system that sort of the nervous system's weak and underdeveloped because, you know, we're Americans. You know, we like sit hunched over. We don't really live healthy lifestyles, so the body's very weak. And the nervous system gets weakened, right? And all the connections get clogged. It's part of the reason why acupuncture is so effective for so many people, because the streams of energy moving throughout the body get very clogged with inactivity. They get very clogged with poor diet, with stressful environments. Everything manifests in the physical body, which can clog up the nervous system. So when it's clogged, it's like if I gotta, so we have like the funny, excuse me, well, I can't say it in front of the kid, but we have the poop storm story of, we had Thanksgiving one year and we had all these people over our house, and we have a 100-year-old house. So it's very old plumbing, and someone clogged up the pipe with a bunch of something. And then everybody was going to the bathroom, flushing under it. And the pressure built up to such an extreme that the pipe exploded, and my father and my brother-in-law got sewage all over them in the basement. It was like crazy, exploding out of the wall. So with the plumbing in our bodies, if there's not space for the energy to move properly, if the pipes aren't developed, they're gonna not be able to hold that much energy. So it starts to cause damage rather than healing, if that makes sense. So that's when you start getting loopy, and you're not really actually going to reach a state of enlightenment like that, because you're going to end up causing imbalances in the body if it's not done properly, systematically, slowly, stoking the energy upward. You know, there are certain cases where, and I've never experienced this personally, but just so you guys are aware, in the certain traditions, the teacher will do shat karma, where they are so in control of matter, they're so powerful that they just place their hand upon the head of a student, and they can reorganize the matter in their body to accept that much prana, and they make the energy come up the spine in that way. That's like a whole other thing. We ourselves as individuals are capable of achieving these things, but slower, right? Not in a night, with practice and with time. And we can do it safely if we have the knowledge to do so.
Thank you for that, Amanda.
Yeah, did that answer your question? Does that make more sense? So you'll see some of these people, and it's like almost like the stereotypical like hippie yogi walking. They don't have a job, and just very ungrounded, like up in space all the time. It's hard to have a conversation with them. They can't remember anything. They can't focus, and they struggle as a householder in life. The idea is, like, with lineages like this, one of the one of the noble aims of life, if you do decide to become a householder in the Grihastha stage, right, you don't decide to go live in the Himalayas and dedicate all your time to this stuff, is that you're able to support your family, and you're able to feed yourself and take care of yourself, and you have to be grounded in a certain aspect to do that. So as householders seeking enlightenment, it's very pertinent to know how to do it safely.
Do you think we should move to pranayama and meditation now?
Okay. Are you saying?
So we'll set up in a straight spine, whether you're laying on your back or sitting in a nice tall seat. I'm just taking a few rounds of nostril breathing, just breathing in and out through the nostrils. Just notice how you're breathing. Notice the prana entering in and out. And then begin to lengthen the breath, filling up the low belly, expanding the belly button out. Then exhaling, pulling belly button down to spine, letting the air move up the spine, out through the nose. You might even have a soft whisper at the back of the throat, welcoming Ujjayi breath. Making the breath sound audible, so you hear yourself breathing. Begin to relax your face and your fingers, your ankles, your knees. And then moving into a few rounds of alternate nostril breathing, bringing right hand in front of your face. You'll use your right thumb to close your right nostril. You'll fold your pointer and thumb into your palm and use your right ring finger to close your left nostril. So closing your right, inhaling through your left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left for 4 counts. Close left and pause for a moment. And then exhale right for 4 counts. Inhale right for 4. Hold and slight pause. Exhale left for 4. Inhale left for 4. Hold left and pause. Exhale right for 4. Inhale right for 4. Hold right, pause. Exhale left. Inhale left. Hold. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close and pause. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close. Exhale left. Releasing your palm down, setting up for your meditation practice this morning, setting your intention, setting the timer for 20 minutes. If you need to set your own timer, we are running over schedule, so you can set your own timer if you need to drop early. Bringing hands to clasp. Namaste.